So we're looking at Proverbs chapter 22, verse 4. Let's see here. Let's look at this in the Hebrew. All right. So we'll start with a literal approach here at the bottom for people who don't read Hebrew. The Young's literal translation is kind of helpful. It says the end of humility is the fear of Jehovah, riches and honor and life. Okay. So we have Ekev, Anava. Okay, Anava, the act of humility. Anav, the adjective, someone being Anav, humble, low. Ekev, Anava, the outcome, that therefore. Ekev can also, as a root, it can be conjugated and used as a preposition to mean the outcome or the result of. So kind of you could say the result. It is a reward. It makes sense to translate it as reward. I see why they're doing it because it's a positive outcome, but the Hebrew isn't, that has words for reward, it has words for treasure and riches. Here it's saying the outcome, which makes sense as to why the Young's literal translation would say the end. So the outcome or the result of humility, Yarat Yehovah, the fear of Yahweh, okay, Osher, wealth, the kavod, and honor being made heavy, v'chaim, life. I don't know here if it's saying the end of humility, like the result of humility is fear of Yahweh, the result of humility is wealth, the result of humility is heaviness, honor, heaviness, being made heavy, and life, life flourishing. Or if it's saying that almost like a Hindiadis, that Anava and Yarat Yehovah are to be thought of as together, as saying the result of humility and the fear of the Lord, or humility which is the fear of the Lord. You don't have an indefinite article in Hebrews. You don't need to say a or an, and you'll often have kind of conjoined ideas and parallelisms, especially in the Proverbs. So it's hard for me to determine whether it's saying that the result of humility is fear of Yahweh, wealth, honor, or heaviness, and life. I don't actually know. So I know that we want a kind of simple translation first. And I judge that it is the best. I think the simplest translation here is the result of humility, which is fear of Yahweh. So I would conjoin this to something like a Hindiadis, a conjoined thought. The result of humility, the fear of Yahweh, is wealth and honor and life. We could look more deeply at the surrounding context to see if it yields any other clues. So the surrounding context is very scattered in subject matter. Sometimes in Proverbs you'll have couplets that are related to each other, and they probably are related to each other in some kind of semantical category, but sometimes they're related to each other in terms of content, and that will help with little clues grammatically. I don't see any on the surface. And I am inclined, looking at it, to actually say that when I say they're a Hindiadis and they're conjoined, it might even be helpful in English to say that is, the phrase that is. We'll use a clarifying phrase, that is. So it would be the result of humility, that is, the fear of Yahweh, is wealth and honor and life. And here, what would be happening then is you'd be getting a different flavor on the fear of Yahweh, which is discussed throughout the Proverbs, the Meshalim. I don't think that it is common that the fear of Yahweh is directly made synonymous and coterminous with humility, and so this does give you insight, and I that's a very powerful claim, that humility is the fear of Yahweh. Humility is the fear of Yahweh. So I would say that is the way the verse should be read. The result of humility, that is the fear of Yahweh, wealth, honor, and life. So that would be how I would translate this. So that's the plain, simple translation. Something that kind of hits me with sod is, this is a sod reading. So what I gave before is pashat, just very clear reading from the grammar. A sense that I'm stirred with is ekev, which is the result there, being translated reward by a lot of other versions, is it has the consonants for Jacob's name, for Yaakov. And so when I think of anav, which is, it's the word for humble, there's a homophone for anav. It sounds exactly the same in Hebrew. It's spelled different. Humble ends with a vav, but grape ends with a beit. And so I think of that like, in other words, God's looking for fruit. This becomes very pertinent if you look like, or there is a place that this shines. If you look in Isaiah 5, Yahweh is planting Jacob, planting Israel as a vineyard, and he goes looking for grapes, for grapes, anav. And anavim, I think, is what it's in the plural there, for grapes. And instead he finds boshim, stink berries, which also means shameful ones. When you look at what seems to distinguish Moshe from the rest of Jacob, from the rest of Israel, it is his humility. He's the most humble man on the face of the earth. And when you look at Exodus 32 and 33 and 34, Moshe, it is his friendship and face-to-face love and devotion and friendship and drawing near to the voice of God instead of running from it. It's that friendship that becomes the basis that reestablishes the Sinai covenant that is essentially obliterated by their decisions and reorientates it around this friendship between Moshe and God. And the basis of that friendship, I judge, is humility. Even at points where he is foolish in his dealings with Yahweh, it is often on the basis of saying he is lower, he is unworthy. So even though he's being foolish and he should trust Yahweh, it's foolish not on the basis, think of the opposite, foolish on the basis of, like, they take the prophet Jonah. They're like, okay, you should kill them, he's enraged and all this kind of stuff. He's not foolish in that direction, and there's something to be said for that. So I do think that the fear of Yah is kind of grounded and founded in humility. And for me, another sod reading is, I've often thought and said when I try to teach people the Yahweh formula in Exodus 34, it doesn't say, it says Yahweh Yahweh El Rachum V'Chanun Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet. It goes through these 5 traits, but it doesn't say Yahweh Yahweh El, who is humble. It doesn't say who is humble. And I've said, well, the reason it wouldn't say it, who is humble, is humility is a required precondition for all 5 of those traits. To be compassionate, you must be humble. To be gracious, you must be humble. To be slow to anger, you must be humble. To be overflowing with loyal love, you must be humble. To be overflowing with faithfulness, you must be humble. So it's interesting that would be correlated to, the humility here would be directly correlated to fear of Yah. Yeah. Yeshua, bless whoever would ponder this and talk to you. God of Israel, bless them.